I don't know
Mhm.
that I have the answer to that because that is such a tenuous place to be, and it's fraught with danger,
It is.
literal danger and psychological danger and emotional danger. I hate to say this, but really the only way out of those situations are when, like myself, someone's life is threatened, either literally with a gun pointed at your chest or in the legal term, legally, you're getting sued, you're in bad shape, you're looking at jail time, which I was in that position, as you may or may not imagine after that story, and or there's been death in the group or, if it's a family member that's not part of the cult, that's really not even gonna shake the tree that much for 90% of the people. And unfortunately, it gets to the point where it's a life or death situation for the cult member. If it's when you're first meeting someone and they're starting to tell you about this stuff and you think there's this cool group of people and, every time you're around them, you feel good and stuff, this is what I tell everybody. Run, motherfucker, run!
Trigger warning, this podcast contains mature themes and discussions of cults, manipulation, and trauma. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Cultimatum, the culture of cults and human trafficking, where we expose the dark side of control, manipulation, and the human stories behind them. I'm Anonymous Andrew, executive producer and investigator into cult dynamics and coercive control.
And I'm Melody, a cult survivor and advocate for awareness and healing.
This is Cultimatum. Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Cultimatum podcast, a culture of cults and human trafficking. And my name is Anonymous Andrew, and with me tonight is my co-host, Melody. Hello, Melody. Who do we have on the show tonight?
Today on Cultimatum, we are joined by Dar Dixon, a Hollywood actor and writer for over 3 decades in the entertainment industry, whose life story reaches far beyond the screen. Born in Iran and raised in the United States, Dar spent 12 years inside a cult called the Eternal Values, an experience that deeply shaped his identity and perspective. Now he's sharing his story through his forthcoming memoir titled The Walk-In and an upcoming HBO documentary as well. In this episode, he opens up about indoctrination, breaking free, and the long, complex process of reclaiming his life after control and conditioning. Dar, welcome to Cultimatum.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, I thought I would just start off with a quick story, and then we can kind of get into everything.
Go for it.
Makes it easier to ask the questions afterwards.
Go
Okay,
for it. Yep.
so we're going to go back in time to June of 1996. It's nighttime. I'm in the hills of Western North Carolina in the mountains in a small little town called Lake Lure. Now, Lake Lure, when I say small, it's only got a population of about 500 people. It swells up to maybe 5,000 during the summer months, but it's tiny. I'm standing in the driveway of the house I'm living in, and there's a cop, and he has his gun pointed at my chest, and he's about 10 feet away from me. His hand is shaking, his voice is breaking, and he keeps screaming the same thing over and over. I'm gonna shoot you. I'm gonna shoot you. And standing there in that driveway, I'm thinking, 12 years. 12 years, and this is where it ends? So, but let me back up a sec because it started back in December 15th of 1983. So what happened was I flew out of Baltimore, Maryland, where I was living. And I flew to San Diego, California, where my parents had just moved and bought a new house. There was snow on the ground in Baltimore. It was 32 degrees. A few hours later, I land in San Diego. It's dark. Step out of the plane into 70-degree weather. The next morning, I wake up. I look out the window of the bedroom I'm in through these French doors, and I see there's a palm tree swaying ever so gently in the breeze, and there's a perfect blue sky and the sun shining. I thought, oh my God, I've died and gone to heaven. I mean, that was it. Done. I was 22 years old, and I'm like you said, I'm half Iranian, I'm half American. I'd played Division I college football. I had zero spiritual background, zero interest in anything mystical. And yet somehow I ended up working afternoon shifts at a Hare Krishna restaurant in a tiny little strip mall in the town of Leucadia in North County, San Diego, along the 101 highway, which between a seedy motel and a liquor store. Swear to you, it's true.
Did you know it was a Hare Krishna restaurant when
I
you
did. I did
Okay,
indeed.
okay.
I was there because I had another job in the evenings at a really nice restaurant. And I thought these guys said, "Hey, you can work here in the afternoon and you get free meals." I'm like, "All right, cool. Work in the afternoon, I get free lunch." I turned into vegetarian, which we can get into a little bit later. I thought, "Yeah, this will work." Weird thing is this place is serving their Hare Krishna Indian, infused meals. And in the corner around the serving table, there's a TV with slaughterhouse footage running on loop in the corner while people are trying to eat their curry. So I was searching at the time. I wasn't really desperate. I was just asking questions that nobody around me ever seemed to be able to answer. So I'm at work at this restaurant. And one afternoon, a guy walks in. He's about 6 feet tall. He's maybe 145 pounds. He's got crystal blue eyes. He's got bleached blonde hair, and he's really fit. He's somewhere in his 30s, but he's carrying this manic energy of someone half that age. I mean, he almost really kind of crackled with electricity. So I'm in the kitchen behind the steam table, and there's a little plexiglass window where we would open it. You could see the steam table, and you could serve the trays of food down. And I saw him, and I thought, "Huh, who's that asshole?" Swear to God. A few minutes later, I step out of the kitchen to get a better look at this guy. He looked unlike anyone else that came in the restaurant. I see him, I walk by the table, I nod and say hello, and I keep walking through the restaurant, and then the weirdest thing happened. Some some force, I don't know what it was. I'm not into the woo-woo and mysticism or anything, but I swear to you, it felt like something or someone literally stopped me in my tracks and turned me around. And the next thing I know, I'm walking up to the table and I sit down across from him. This guy's a complete stranger. And I tell him, "I can't believe I'm doing this. I don't even know you." He reaches across the table and the guy takes my hands, both of them. And first thing I noticed was, God, this guy's grip is stronger than it had any right to be for a guy this lean, this skinny. And then those blue eyes locked into mine. He says, "I'm Frederick von Mears." 35 minutes later, he tries to give me the brush off. He says, "No, I think you should stay in California. You should read. We can stay in touch by telephone." He just told me he lived in Manhattan and they were getting ready to leave because they didn't find anybody sincere in California. So here's the part that really separates my story from probably every other cult story you've ever heard. And if anyone else has one similar to this, I haven't heard it in the past 30 years. I pushed back when he said, "Stay here." I said, "No, no, 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 no. I'm interested, man. I want to learn more." And he kind of leaned back a second and he studies me, and then he smiles. He says, "Well, if you're serious, we could meet 3 days from now." I'm like, "Great. Where do I go?" So I get the address. 3 days later, I jump in my car. I take the 5 up to the 405 to the 10 towards Santa Monica. Told myself I was just curious. But the truth was that I was already gone. 12 years later, a cop is standing in a mountain driveway in North Carolina with a gun pointed at my chest, his hand shaking, screaming he's going to shoot me. And that wasn't even the most dangerous thing that happened to me in those 12 years.
So what was the cult experience? Where did you go after you met up with him? How did that proceed?
Well, San Diego, I was in North County, San Diego, and I was in this town called La Costa, which has really kind of become Carlsbad and Encinitas. But that's where we were. People who know. And this little Hare Krishna restaurant that I'd found out about was in a town called Lucadia, which is right next to Encinitas. It's about, I would say, 3 miles from where I was living. And I'd found out, back it up a little bit, I'd found out about the Hare Krishna restaurant 'cause, when we moved to Southern California, it seemed like everybody that was friends with my parents reached out and wanted to come and visit all of a sudden because we were in San Diego, everybody wanted to be in San Diego. So they'd come and stay at our house, and it was really funny. Our house basically became my parents' house became like a hotel, and they would leave during the day. Well, one time, some close friends of my parents, was actually one of my father's oldest friends, an Iranian guy. he and his wife showed up, and they had their kids with them, and we considered them like cousins and my aunt and my uncle, even though they weren't, literally that. And I took him down to SeaWorld, and, as soon as we parked the car and got out of the car, this guy comes up to me, and he's a Hare Krishna guy, and, he's got the tilaka, gold tilaka on his forehead, and he's got a little ponytail, and he's got orange robes on, and he's got like an overcoat over him, and he's like, "Hey, check this out," and he starts giving me the wrap. And, he says, "Vegetarian food, blah, blah, blah," and then he says, "Oh, yeah, we have a place in Leucadia where you are." So that's how I found out about him. And that's where I met this guy, Frederick von Meers, whose real name was Fred Myers. He was a Jewish guy. He was born in Brooklyn, New York, and he was on 8th Avenue. At any rate, somehow he managed to, over the course of his life, get into the modeling world, get into Manhattan, and somewhere along the way, he changed his name from Fred Myers to Frederick von Meers. And so that's who I met in that Hare Krishna restaurant that afternoon. And his rap, his hustle, his game, his con was basically that he would ask you immediately, which is what he did with me. He introduced himself, then says, "What's your name?" And then immediately, "Where were you born? What time were you born?" Yeah, the date, the time, and the location. That's what he wanted to know. And then his right-hand man, a guy named John Andreatis, who was just about my age. I think he might be a year or two younger than me. So I'm 22 at the time, John was about 20, and, John whips out this ephemeris, which is what astrologers use, and he starts going through it, and then Frederick instantly takes the ephemeris from him and then starts telling me things about myself that, to my 22-year-old mind, seems surreal. Like, how could he know this? How does he know this stuff about me? And, looking back now from where I am now, back upon that time, it's just basically every con man's hustle. It's a quick read, you know, it's knowing that I'm at least 10, 15 years younger than him, knowing what that is like to be that age and what interests me, asking me questions about myself, and just doing a very quick read. And, when you're young and slightly naive and you are in a vulnerable position, which I was, caught me off guard. And, that's how it started. And, he told me, like I was saying in that little story, that he was from Manhattan, they lived in Manhattan, and that, he said, "Everybody's full of shit out here," talking about California in general, not just Southern California. "You're the only person that we've met who's devoted and sincere." And I was like, "Devoted and sincere, okay." I didn't know what he was talking about. I
But
didn't
that's
necessarily.
gaslighting. That's gaslighting.
Well, it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
What he's doing, Andrew, is love bombing in that instant.
Okay, okay.
But there is gaslighting. You are correct about that. And,
Let me ask you a quick question.
of
Is
course,
there any significance to the changing of his name? You kind of glanced over that. He went from
100%,
Robert
yes.
Myers or something to something wacky.
Frederick.
Frederick.
Fred became Frederick. Myers became von Meers, and which is spelled lowercase von, and then capital Mieres. So it's kind of a play on Myers, von Meers, but it sounds more refined and arch. And what he did, he was born to an unwed teenage girl who was 16 at the time, who already had given birth to 2 children, if you can imagine. And the story, as we've been able to discern it, is that she knew she couldn't take care of another baby and gave Fred to her older sisters, who I don't know how much older they were, but they took him and they raised him. So this guy's kind of screwed from the start. He's got abandonment issues, no mommy, doesn't feel loved. And those things left unchecked and without any, you know, mental health intervention or anything like that, you're going to breed a sociopath, and most likely will turn into something which we now know, something Eric Fromm coined decades ago, a malignant narcissist. And he was both of those things. The technical mental health term is antisocial personality disorder. but for whatever reason, the colloquial, conventional term is sociopath. But to finish, to answer your question, Andrew, he got into a modeling game. He wasn't really very successful. He was a very handsome guy.
I was just going to ask you that. Was he a good-looking guy?
He was a good-looking guy. He was a good-looking guy. He's about 6 feet tall. And at some point, he met up with a wealthy, widowed socialite, a woman named Mrs. Earl Cress Williams. Or her name was Helen Williams. Her husband was Earl Cress Williams, and he was the kind of the scion to a five and dime fortune. He had like Woolworths type of stores. I don't remember what they were called, but
Yeah.
so she was very wealthy.
Woolworths and 5 and 10. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Somehow he befriended her, and she enjoyed him, and he was a gay man. And he was extremely charming, very smart.
Gay in today's terminology, or gay
Yes,
as in happy?
No. He was homosexual.
Okay.
And very smart, very quick on his feet, very charismatic, great storyteller. And, that was the thing when I was telling you that story. He could spin a story. He was hilarious. And although now if I were to meet him, were he still alive, and I'd run into him, I'd be like, Jesus Christ, get out of my way, please, seriously. But back then, at that 22 years of age, and going through what I'd gone through up to that point in my life, and moving as many times as I had in my life, like, that was the brand of crazy I needed at that time, I guess. That's the best answer I have for you, plus an intense amount of love bomb.
Can you kind of explain the name of the cult and what some of the beliefs were?
Well, that's interesting. Sure. Yeah, the cult was called Eternal Values, and I don't know how they came up with that. And the reason it's interesting that they were in California was that Frederick and John, remember John was about 20 years old at the time, and I think he'd met Frederick. I call him Fred all the time. I'll interchange it, just whoever's listening, so you know. One of the first things I did when I was going through my recovery was started to just take the piss out of all of the story that I'd been told. And, I know one thing was back, if he were alive and I called him Fred, he would have lost his mind. So John and Frederick were out in California. They'd gone up to San Francisco, and they were making these tapes and giving them to public access television stations in Manhattan and in San Francisco. I don't know that there was anywhere else, but they had the East and the West Coast covered that way. And the graphics, you can find them online. There's some of them on YouTube, and it's just super 80s, cheesy, bad as you may imagine. I don't know where they came up with it, but that's what they chose. And the beliefs, here's Frederick's story. He claimed to be a walk-in from the star Arcturus. He claimed that he was the reincarnation of Abraham. And he came into this world, I think it was something like January, I forget the exact date off the top of my head, January like 28th, 1978 at 7:35 p.m. or something like that. And the conceit around walk-in, the term walk-in in the New Age community, I've never really heard it since then. I don't think it really is a big deal. But back in the 80s, it had started to gain speed. And he found out about the term while reading one of Ruth Montgomery's books. And I think the one that he picked up was called Strangers Among Us. And that's where he saw the term walk-in. And so he said the old Fred, he said the old Frederick. Well, there was no old Frederick. It was Fred. He believed his con from the floor up, like they said in the movie American Hustle.
And to clarify, when you say Abraham, you mean the Abraham of the Bible?
That's correct. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes. So he said the old Fred had become disillusioned and distraught and didn't want to be here anymore, whether that meant suicide or I don't know what. But to me, that's the implication. Like, what the devil does that mean, right? And so they agreed to swap, the souls into the old Fred's body. And so the conceit is Frederick came from Arcturus and walked into Fred's body. Yes, I can see the smile on your face. Yes,
Yes,
so that's
yes.
where that came from. And his story to me and to everybody else was, yes, yes, absolutely, Andrew. Andrew, for all of those of you at home, is taking his finger and making circles around the side of his head. Um, it is batshit crazy. Um, it used to be so hard for me to admit this stuff. I never
Yeah,
want to admit
a
it. And then I
and,
believed.
and I don't try I try not to label cult leaders too much before I've heard the whole story, but so that's why I did that for
No, feel
yeah.
free, please. No, no, no,
Well,
no.
I
This
wanna
guy
hear
was
the
a
rest of
con
this.
artist. Yeah. So he said that he was here to find leaders of the new age, and that he was looking for, he'd made a deal while he was on Arcturus to come to Earth, walk into a body, and find all of the souls from Arcturus who had already made an agreement, a spiritual pact, that they would be the leaders of the new age. And that's what I was. And that's what everybody who was in the inner circle was. And so he gave us this rap that we're leaders of the new age, and he's here to train us because at the turn of the century, which was 2000, right? This was 984 when I met him. The turn of the century, the Earth's magnetic poles were going to shift just a few degrees on their axis, and then it would cause cataclysmic storms, earthquakes, floods, typhoons, pestilence, and disease, right? It's raining cats and dogs. And that what would happen was we would be spared all of that because the space brothers and sisters from Arcturus, I'm sorry, it's funny, would come with their spaceships.
Well,
And
mine wasn't spaceships, but I was smiling because that was so many cults, including mine, predict this stuff. It's very. I'm sure you have,
yes,
since you've
Heaven's
left,
Gate.
heard all these other cults that teach such similar things, and
yeah.
we all fall into it, right? We believe it when we're in it.
Yes, belief is a very tenuous thing. Yeah, you bringing up so many. I could talk about this for hours, but to your point, yes, you're right. It's the hallmarks of pseudo religious doomsday cult. That's all it is, right? I'm talking to you
Yes,
about doomsday.
absolutely. Yep.
So we were going to be spared that because our space brothers, the aliens, were going to come from Arcturus and beam us up into their spaceship where we would just go and stay safe. But, time and space was a relative thing, and they'd let us come back down, beam us back down to planet Earth 4, 5, 6 years later after everything had settled and the mud and the fires and everything had stopped. And then we would begin to do what we'd been trained to do, which was to bring in the new age. Now, that's really heady stuff if they get their emotional hooks into you. And the thing is about cults, everyone, literally across the board, first thing they always say to you is like, this guy said it to me just the other day. My wife and I went to a party at our friend's house, happens to be a federal judge. He's got several friends there, federal judges, attorneys were there. And this one guy is an attorney. He's like, you're a tall guy, and you're a nice looking guy, and you're well spoken. You seem very self assured, and like, how the hell did you get into a cult? And
Yep.
it's because everybody thinks it's a psychological, rational reasoning game, and it's
Yes,
not. It's not.
absolutely.
And I told him, I said, like, look, the hook is it's an emotional hook. A good con artist, a good cult leader, and I don't know if you can use those two words together, a good cult leader. But what they do is they find what your weak spot is, where your vulnerability is, where that emotional vacuum inside you is. And then they put their hooks in that. And once those hooks are in, baby, you gone. It's
Mhm.
Yep,
over. It's over. And,
exactly.
it's very nasty business. But that was the rap. That was the belief. And he mixed it in with Vedic astrology, allegedly, which was different from Western astrology. How? Don't ask me. It was all the same horse shit as far as I was concerned. Um, he mixed in aliens. He mixed in the Vedas. He mixed in the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible. He rarely quoted the Quran for whatever reason. He never quoted the Talmud or the Torah, which was interesting because he's a Jewish kid from Brooklyn. He may have been one of the most, this is a misnomer, the frame of anti-Semitism, but for conversation's sake, may have been one of the wildest anti-Semites I'd ever met in my life. He hated Jews. He hated the Jewish culture, the Jewish people, and yet out of the next side of his mouth, he would say, I am the reincarnation of Abraham. It's like, well, brother, wasn't that guy Jewish?
Oh, the irony.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The irony is so thick you can cut it with a knife. So those were the belief systems. We believed in reincarnation. We believed in aliens. We believed in a purity of our temple, the body of the Most High, right? So we followed this crazy diet that Frederick came up with, which was largely vegetarian, a lot of food combinations, a lot of green, leafy green vegetables, juices, fresh fruits, no meat whatsoever, very little, lay off sugar totally, which, inadvertently, it really helped because we never slept. Sleep deprivation was all the time. You just worked and worked, which incidentally, the work thing, he bastardized karma yoga, which is one of the tenets that, someone named Swami Vivekananda wrote about in several of his books. But there are 4 yogas, and I'm not talking about hatha yoga, which everyone considers yoga, which is really just stretching, let's be honest. Um, and that's in no means a spiritual pursuit, but with Western society, people would be screaming at me right now. But there is jnana yoga, which is the yoga of wisdom, intelligence. There is Raja yoga, the kingly yoga, which is a reference to, say, kingly, the royal yoga, which is a reference to the self, the soul being supreme, royal, kingly, or queenly. There's so there's jnana, there's raja, there's bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of devotion, and then there is karma yoga, which is work, the yoga of good works. And so he would take karma yoga and twist it and tell us, in karma yoga in the Bhagavad Gita, it says to work, and I'm going to paraphrase this here because I don't speak Hindi or Bengali or whatever languages that's been written in and translated from. To work, you have the right, but not to the fruits thereof. Therefore, let not your attachments be to your work or to the fruits of your work. And so he turned that around to get everybody to work literally 18 hours, 20 hours a day. There were huge stretches of time during my time in the cult, where I'd sleep 3 hours a night. Yeah, and so you're constantly sleep deprived, and you
And
can't
were
think.
you like, did you live on a compound? Did you all live in the same building? Did you live in separate locations?
Man,
How
this is
was
gonna
that
get
set up in the cult?
it's gonna get weird now. We're kicking it into weird gear number 2 here, or number 3, actually. I mean, I said enough weird stuff to fill up a whole book. He lived in Manhattan, and he lived on First Avenue and 54th Street. And it was a building, a very nice building, dorm, and that's a Tony part of Manhattan. It's called Sutton Place. And he had an apartment there, and on the 4th floor. And he also had another apartment. The address well, I don't want to start advertising the address. It doesn't matter anyway. It was 405 East 54th Street. There was also a 405 East 55th Street. And so these 2 buildings, although separate and on 54th and 55th Street, underneath they had subterranean tunnels and walkways and storage bins, and the laundry room was down there. And so he had another apartment on the 55th Street side, and it was on the 6th floor, and that was kind of the office, and it was really wild because his apartment was painted this deep blue violet, and even the hardwood floors had been painted violet, and they were pristine high gloss, like those walls had been sanded. It looked like a mirror finish. You've never seen anything like it. But then the walls in the 6th floor apartment on 55th Street, all pink. I was like, "What's this about?" He goes, "Oh, it's a very calming color. This is the office, and this is where all the work will be done." And I was like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" Right? But he had a whole plan in his head, and I didn't know it then, But over the course of the next couple of years, remember I told you he read Ruth Montgomery's books.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. More Cultimatum is coming up.
Ruth Montgomery used to be a very well-respected political journalist, a journalist of note in D.C. Somewhere along the line, she began to veer away from that and do what she called automatic writing. And she claimed that she would sit down at her desk on her typewriter. This is how much I'm dating myself in the story. She sat at her typewriter and she would close her eyes and kind of go into a trance, and then automatically her fingers would start moving on the typewriter. And she wrote these books. She wrote a series of books. There was another one before, Stranger Among Us. Doesn't matter. I'm not here to advertise Ruth, but he realized that if he got Ruth to write about him in her next book, he's on his way. You could develop a business out of that, a speaking business, merchandise, appearances, consulting, and then his added hustle was he would go and buy these inferior gems. Don't ask me how he got them. I don't know. He had several connections in the Diamond District in Manhattan. And he would take these gems, and when I'm telling you they're inferior, you could look at them with your eyes. And even if you don't understand gems, you could see the color was off, the carat was off, the cut was off, and the clarity was off. And then he would claim that he would, you know, pray over them, meditate over them, and imbue them with powers. And then he had this little miniature square box that was like a Faraday box, like Nikola Tesla had made, the Faraday cage, right? With the copper wires and the pyramid in it. And he would say it would energize it and everything else. And then he would sell these almost worthless gems at exorbitant prices. Exorbitant prices. And so that's what he started to do once the next book that Ruth wrote, which was called Aliens Among Us. Frederick got 4 chapters written about him and several of the people in the group in the book. And after that, boom, that apartment, the pink apartment I just told you about, we were processing orders. We were mailing books out. We were mailing life readings. He used to do life readings. He'd get people to give their name, their date, and their location of their birth. And then he would, I swear to God, he'd grab a little funky tape recorder like we all had back in the day, press play and record, and start shouting into it. And literally, he'd have music on in the background, some crazy new age music, and he would just give a quote unquote life reading and tell people about themselves, the good parts of their sign, the bad parts of their sign, their good tendencies, their bad tendencies, their strengths, their weaknesses. And for
people
that,
bought this.
Andrew, they paid $300 in 1980s dollars for this.
Wow. Most of the work that you were doing was merchandising and propaganda, I'm assuming?
Excuse me, I was not doing that, no, but that's what the Eternal Values became. I told you we followed this crazy strict diet.
Right.
On top of following this food combination, and it was literally, Frederick called it the diet. And he had it printed out, and he would mail the diet off to people. And I don't know what he charged, I forget. Let's say $12 for the diet. And it was just a printout of what you're supposed to eat and not eat. $12 for 2 pieces of paper, right?
Right.
He would send the life reading. It's $300. It's like, maybe 45 minutes to an hour long with this music in the background. And it's not a sophisticated recording at all. At all.
Right.
And people would call back and give me my money back. This is nonsense. So they were doing that. They were selling herbs. They were selling exercise equipment. They were selling vitamins. We were selling all kinds of stuff. What I did was there was one of the guys had learned how to be a house painter. And I ended up working with him. And so we would paint these apartments. And over time, it went from 1 apartment to those 2 apartments I mentioned. And I think at one point we had about 6 apartments in both buildings. But beyond that, we also had jobs with quote unquote, the normal people of the world. So we were really good painters, I have to say. We were great painting business. Like I can still If I wanted to, I could do a phenomenal paint job anywhere on a house, interior, exterior, especially finishes.
You probably don't really enjoy painting anymore, though, I'm gonna guess.
You are a wise woman. That ship has sailed, yes. No, I've painted enough.
I bet. You're probably like, "I'm really good at it, but I don't really like it."
No,
So how
thank you,
long did this
exactly.
go on for?
Well, which part? The hustle, the game, or my
Yeah.
game, my
D
part of
d
it?
d
Um,
well, you
it
were
went on for years.
yeah, so you're part of it. Well, I guess we'll get to the point where you exited stage left at some point. So
Yes.
or maybe we should jump to that and unless you got some more. What
It's your call, man. You tell
what
me. It's
you
my story is long and varied, and I was in, and then I left for a year, and then I came back a year later, and then, I got kicked out in 1989, and then I was kinda floating around in Southern California for about 5 years, and then I ran into one of the guys in the group out in Los Angeles, and, he told me that, Frederick had died, and I was like, "Oh my god," and "We've gotta talk." He's like, "Yeah, yeah," and I started to tear up. I was working at this restaurant in Los Angeles, so I'm all over the place. I can tell you anything you wanna do. I was in it.
Curious to hear what first led you out. Well, like, what was your wake-up call? What was your breaking point?
Well, the wake-up call for me was the story I told when I had that gun pointed at you. That'll get your attention real fast,
Right.
And, it's really long story, so you'll have to buy the book,
And
obviously. Ha,
and
ha,
was
ha.
that the first time you left? Was that the first time you left?
No, that's the thing. I got involved with the group in '84, December 2 weeks before Christmas, December of 80 15th of '84. I'm in Manhattan. I left my beloved Southern California, which I swore I would never leave. I'm there in Manhattan with this crazy SOB named Frederick von Meers and, John Andreottis's right-hand man. And he had told me I was gonna come out there, and he was gonna, introduce me to several of his friends who had really nice restaurants because he knew I was working at a nice restaurant in San Diego, and "You'll be making $1,000 a week in tips, dear." And I thought, "Shit, I mean, $1,000 a week, okay, I mean, like, I can, until something better comes along, I can make Manhattan work with that kind of money."
back then,
48
yeah.
hours. Yeah, exactly. 48 hours later, the guy pulls a bait and switch on me and says, "Oh, you gotta go learn how to work with your hands. You're an egomaniac, and you've got a Hecate moon. You're gonna go paint apartments with the other guy." And I thought, "What? You're not gonna live here. You're gonna go up to the South Bronx, and you're
But
gonna live in the South Bronx at the
did you still
Loft."
get the $1,000 a week?
Andrew, I never made a single thin dime the entire time I was in this cult.
I was gonna say, I'm guessing
Slave
all that
labor.
that was you were labor trafficked, and all that money
Correct.
went back to the leader or back to the group.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. In fact, you know, I keep kind of finding rooms in this house of cards that I was a part of all these years, even 30 plus years. Like, I got out, I finally escaped on literally October 31st of 1996 on Halloween. And so what are we talking about? That's 30 years ago, right?
Right?
Okay. Just a month ago, I'm talking with my buddy who lives out here in Los Angeles with me. He just happened to become a super successful male model, probably one of the most successful ever. And he gave like every penny that he ever made to Frederick, to the group.
I have a question. And
Yes,
and and this is going to be one of those Andrew doesn't understand, and like I discussed with you before we recorded, and the
sure,
audience knows.
sure.
And a recording, an episode before this, and I don't know which one because this one's coming out in many weeks from now, so I don't know which one. But there was a recording we did with a woman who was in the Amish, and she was born and grew up there, and around 19 she left the Amish, and but the way she put it was that she escaped. And I asked her because all of the episodes we've done, I think that was one of the first times I heard that term, escaped, as opposed to I left or I ran away or, people rescued me or whatever the case is. You just used that same term. You said in 1996 I escaped. Can you explain what's the difference between I left and I escaped? And why? Because my reason asking last time was, for me, escaping means I climbed the barbed wire fence, or I dug a hole under the ground because I was a
Fair.
prisoner. And I
That's
know,
fair.
and people have said to me, we can be prisoner if in cults, you can be prisoners in your own mind. Right. That's a Melody
100%.
explained to me. But
100%.
I'm just curious why you used that term.
Because of what you just said.
Okay.
Um, you know, the hardest part for someone who has not been in a cult, and I'm sure Melody can attest to this, is to really understand the depth and the depth of brainwashing and mind control
Okay.
Yep.
and the breadth of it. So not only is it deep, it's wide and it is powerful. And so when you're in a situation like that, by definition, you are a prisoner of your own mind. And
Yes.
so I use that word very specifically. I'm glad you caught that. Um, I don't think about using it. It's not like, oh, and this is a
No, it's
technique.
natural for you, but
It's
that's
very natural because it's true. It's true. You
Because
know,
Andrew, the barbed wire is in our minds.
that's right.
The the
okay.
That's
the
right.
prison is in our minds,
That's right.
and we do have to escape that. You do have to change your
Okay.
way of thinking. You have to let go of those things that you believe, and you have
Yeah.
to believe something else in order to leave, and it's hard.
Oh, it's damn near impossible. Damn near impossible. So in my case, it took a loaded 9 millimeter by a cop whose fingernails were chewed to the quick. They were bloody. His finger was way too close to the trigger. He was breaking all law enforcement protocol, and his hand is shaking. And I'm like, this motherfucker's going to shoot me, man. This is how I go out? Am I going to take one to the chest right here? Are you serious? Like, there you go. So I say escaped for that reason. The second part of it is, leave, yes, you leave, but it's an escape because for me specifically, I'm not going to speak to anyone else. Let me just stay in my lane. I had to come up with a story that I could sell to the group so that I could get them to take their hand off of the hook, off of off of their, the mental gun, so that they wouldn't give me grief and they wouldn't try to keep me physically, restrain me from leaving, which, you just they have to agree. If they agree with it, then this is going to go a lot smoother. And so I came up with an idea and I pitched it to them and it worked. And so although I packed a bag and I jumped in a car and I drove to Charlotte and jumped on the plane and flew back, make no mistake about it, I was scared to death every step of the way, and it was an escape, it was a jailbreak. It just looked a lot different than the jailbreaks you see in a movie.
Well, and that's why I asked, because
Yeah.
as a layperson or not a cult survivor, I watched too many movies and, Escape from Alcatraz and, what was that movie, Redemption, or I can't think of the name right now, but it
Tell me the
yeah,
stars, I'll tell you the name.
God, it was a very famous movie. It was a prison movie where they broke out. The point is that's I associate the word escape with really escaping, or like
Shawshank
somebody.
Redemption.
Yes, that was it. Thank you. That
You're welcome.
like a teenager who gets kidnapped, or somebody who gets kidnapped and they escape. It's a
Yeah. So
physical out
let's get
getting out, and
let's get
you're
super weird with it.
okay.
Uh, would you well, I'm just gonna this is my 2 cents here, and people may disagree with it, but this is a cult-infused audience or an interested audience. I'm gonna suggest that all religious texts from all of the major religions are nothing but allegory. They're no more the word of God because you can't prove what God is or isn't, right? that I'm talking scientifically, right? So those are allegories. Those are figurative texts, okay? And so similarly, the escape from Alcatraz, the Shawshank Redemption escape, climbing through shit in a sewer to break free from the prison, maybe that's what every cult member has to do in one form or the other. But it's a mental game, it's a psychological game because that's how you got hooked.
I
That's how
like
you
that,
got hooked.
Dar. I
Yeah.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
It's a good explanation.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's the cleanest I can make it for you.
Okay.
And I
No,
said shit.
I'm fascinated because I've been sitting here for 2 years and I maybe I'm not paying attention or maybe I
No,
just
you are. It's because it's a great question. You are paying attention. That's a
people
great
haven't
question.
used that word often or at all until
Mm,
to the Amish, her name was the Amish Misfit. So,
God, Amish,
that was a
she was
y
being generous when she said escaped. She
yeah.
almost had to
Well,
do an actual jailbreak.
and
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah,
I
she did.
questioned her. Yeah, and that's why I
She
Wow.
did
questioned
ha
her.
she had to get help from the outside to get out. Yes,
Oh
exactly.
my God, listen, the Amish, that whole humble, quiet, pious, we're riding around in carriages, that's
Uh,
just a
it's a
front.
facade. Oh,
They're
yeah.
beating their women, they're raping their women, they're
Yep, and
beating the
children.
kids. Oh
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's what happens, and that's how it happened. I forgot what the we went down this path, but I forgot what you'd asked me before. So,
Well, I'll tell
um,
you what, we're coming down on the last 3 quarters of the hour, so I'd like to go through your deconstruction when so you get off the plane and what happens then, and where and you talked about a wife. When did you meet her?
oh man, great story for you. Okay, so the deconstruction, as you say, or the recovery process,
Mhm.
to me is the most interesting part of any cult story because it is hard. It is gnarly. It is easily one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life, if not the most difficult. Um, and most cult members, former cult members, never go through the process of unpacking the brainwashing and the mind control they went through. They just don't do it. It's painful. It's arduous. It's ooh, it's challenging as all get
Well,
out because
it's like anybody who goes through physical trauma, like rape or a mugging or a beating, it's something that they don't know how to process, and sometimes they don't even come forward and talk about, right?
right,
So,
right, right,
Right.
right. That's true because there's a ton of shame and guilt
shame.
and fear around it. Yeah.
And they
Shame's
don't wanna
crippling.
relive it. It's there's all those things that play a factor.
Yeah, which is, and and ironically, that's, you're not gonna relive it, you as you tell it, of course, you have to go back in that space and stuff, but the thing that never gets talked about that topic, Melody, on the or that's that subject specifically, is that with every telling, with every visitation of it, you lessen the charge
You do.
psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, it's gone,
Absolutely.
and
Every
you
time
can
you tell the story, it loses a little bit more power.
That's right, that's right. I would say, not to make it romantic or whatever, but my superpower is my ability to sit with pain, intense emotional pain, and psychological pain, and I didn't know that at the time, but I found out, if you can just sit with it, if you just sit with it and watch it happen, incredibly difficult. What I'm saying took me 10 years to figure out, to understand. I couldn't do it. But if you can just sit and watch it happen, that'll be your saving grace. So I got out, I came to California, Southern California. I'm back in SoCal, and I don't know if I'm coming or going. And I know that's a cliche, but I literally didn't know. If you saw me, if you spoke with me, and you didn't know me, you'd think everything's fine. Oh, this nice guy, he's funny, good energy, blah, blah, blah. If you knew me, you could tell that I was shaken and something really messed up had happened to me and that I wasn't anywhere close to being ready to talk about it, nor did I know how to talk about it. So over the course of time, I got a compressed time because this is a 30-year thing you're asking me. I realized, God, I missed acting. I gave it up to get into this cult. And so I'm getting back in the game. I'm going to go to acting class. So I found an acting class. It was in Los Angeles. I was living an hour away in South Orange County with my folks. I was flat broke busted. I told you I didn't get paid anything. I had no money whatsoever. And I would borrow one of my parents' cars, and I would drive up to Los Angeles, go to this acting class, hang out for 3 hours, get weird with it, act, whatever, and then go back home and get up and go to work the next day. In this acting class one night, it's in a little theater. It's in West Los Angeles, real close to the 10 freeway. Little black box theater they have out here. It holds 49 seats. You have 49 seat and 99 seat theaters in Los Angeles. This is not a theater town. It's Hollywood, right? So it was this little black box theater, and by black box, the entire place is black, inside and out. And on stage, under the lights is this very beautiful woman, and she's dressed head to toe in black, and she's got these gold wireframe glasses on, and her hair is pulled back, and she's complaining about this audition that had gone sideways. And she's going on and just bitching. And it's for one of the biggest shows in television at the time, for one of the biggest casting directors. And I'm thinking, I would give my left arm to have that problem. I'd give my left arm. And I wish she'd shut the fuck up. Well, that was my soon-to-be wife. Her name is Donzale Abernathy. And then Donzale does her scene. She stops talking after about 15 minutes, and she does her scene, and I'm blown away. She is head and shoulders one of the best actors I've ever seen in my life. And in the scene, she broke into tears, and there wasn't a false note. And in that moment, she rearranged the molecules in the room and took me out of all of my anguish and my pain and my suffering, all of the trials that I had going on, literal trials. I'm not being figurative here. And I forgot about everything. And for me, that escape, that beauty, that transformation of art, it means the world to me. It's why I am an artist. That's why I became an actor. And so I knew from being a Division I football player, I played at Bowling Green State University in Northwest Ohio. I knew that to get better, you got to play with the better actors, better players, And so I called her up, and we were going to do a scene. And so we set up a time and day to do it. And I drive to meet her, and I stop off to go to the bathroom, and I call her from this payphone, this nasty little payphone at McDonald's. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Well, I'm writing my book, and I haven't eaten all day. And I'm like, you're writing a book? This woman she keeps getting more interesting. Who is this? So, okay, so I'll get you something to eat. So I grab a burger and fries and a Coke, and two of them, and I jump in the car, and I drive up to her place, and I walk in the place, and she opens up the door, and I walk into this super neat, clean space. And the first thing I'm noticing is that, okay, wow, this is something else. And on the floor, there are about 200 black and white glossy photos, and they're of the civil rights movement. And I recognize some of them I don't. And then I see over in the corner against the wall and the couch, there's about two stacks of 10 to 15 high legal pads, and there's handwriting in them. And I'm like, what's that? I point to it. She goes, oh, that's my book. I'm writing my book. And I look at her, I go, you're writing your book by hand? She goes, well, do you want to buy me a laptop? And this is 1996. Laptops were not really very affordable back then. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I was just asking a question. It's all okay. And my wife's a black woman, and I'm a tall white guy, and I'm in her house. And so I kind of back up like, okay, sorry, didn't mean anything by it. I don't want her to get scared or anything. And then I look at the photos. I'm like, wow, look at those pictures. That's great. Where'd you get those? She goes, oh, I got those. Bill Gates donated those to me. Bill Gates? Who is this chick? What's going on? Then I see there's a picture, and it's Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Well, I recognize him. I've seen him. I've known about him. We learned about that in school. But there's a guy standing next to him dressed the same way. They're in, suit and ties, clean cut, clean shaven. I'm like, I know who that is, but who's the guy standing next to Dr. King? She goes, that's Daddy and Uncle Martin. I'm like, wow.
Wow.
Who is this woman? And then from that point on, I listened to her story, and we didn't rehearse that night. And I got a crash course not only in her book, all the pictures, and the people she knew by name and backstory, right? And the history of Black people in America and the civil rights movement. It was unbelievable. And
Did
there
she
was a
get the
second
part?
time.
Did she get the part that she was auditioning for when you first met her?
She did not get that part.
Okay.
But a year and a half later, she did get, a lead role in a television series called Any Day Now, which really kind of blasted her career into a next level. But so that's how I met my wife, Donzale, and, it was a it was a it was a wild time, I'll tell you, learning about Black history in America, the civil rights movement, racism, slave trade, the plantations, Jim Crow, reparations, you name it. I didn't know what she was talking about. I had never heard about most of what she was talking about. So there was the fascination and the education, and then the what? Why don't I know this? And then after that, as I'm going through my recovery, and again, I'm compressing many years here, I started to see the parallels between brainwashing and mind control in a cult and racism in American history, or any country's history for that matter. You can't unsee it once you know what you're looking at. You can't unsee it. And I'm grateful to that. I mean, I love my wife. We fell in love, obviously, and she gave me a great gift. My mother-in-law, her mother gave me a great gift in that I was able to say what I just told you, because it gave me this unbelievable perspective on what I'd been through. And I'm not trying to minimize my cult experience or anyone else's cult experience, but comparatively to every Black American in this country, every brown-skinned American in this country, every Asian American in this country, Native Americans, it's nothing. I had a starting point and I had an end point, an out point. For them, it never ends.
Wow. Yeah, I can definitely see that analogy.
Yeah,
Even if you just go as simple as the us versus them thinking.
there you go. There you go. Yeah, us versus them thinking. Well said.
All right. I That brings us to the top of the hour, and I'd like, unless you have anything else you'd like to add, we have 2 questions for you to close out
I
the
will add
show.
one thing,
Go for it.
yes. So, I've written a book, it's called The Walk-In, and what I did was I took that, term that Fred Myers used to become Frederick von Mears and the whole bullshit story to it, and all the new age mysticism that he put on it, and I spun it and turned it on its head. And I'm taking control of that now because I'm just a guy who's walking back into his identity and his life. No mysticism, no BS, no aliens, no spaceships.
Very
And
fitting.
yes, thank you. And that will come out, I'm hoping at the beginning of June, because on June 1st, HBO is going to air a docuseries. It's a 3-part docuseries about the cult that I was in. It's focused on my friend, the guy who became the model in the group. But I'm prominently featured throughout all 3 of the episodes, and, it's you can't buy that kinda advertising. So, the book will come out at the same time, and, I will
No.
have yeah, I've got all the website and all the ordering forms, all that stuff is still being worked on as we speak, but I'll be happy to send that stuff to you, and people can
Dar,
find it.
besides the podcasts that are exploding, just the podcast industry exploding, but the
Yeah.
nuance of cults is starting to really pick up. Like even our show, we went from a nothing 2 years ago to we've already received several accommodations and anyway,
Congratulations, I didn't know that. That's
yeah.
great.
So, um,
Congrats.
but it's the I think, and Melody might agree with me, it's the studios, Hollywood, or I shouldn't say Hollywood, whoever does like the HBO and Hulu and help me out, Melody. Who are some of the streaming services that are putting out cult documentaries?
Netflix, I mean, they're
They're
all
all
seeming
doing
to
it.
jump
They're
on the
all doing it.
bandwagon, really, they
Oh,
are.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Netflix,
and we need
Hulu,
more of
Apple
that.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
we need more because what you went through and what our Amish misfit went through and the other 110 guests we had,
Yeah.
it's a plague, and it is not. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. It may morph and change over the next 10, 20, 30 years. Some like Jehovah's Witnesses is slowly starting to crumble. People are fleeing. but and Scientology the same thing. But other ones are springing up, like
Yeah.
Twin Flames Universe, online cults, and I think the landscape is going to change. So we need HBO, like your documentary coming out to
We need that awareness.
we
Yeah,
need the
the
awareness.
awareness needs to be out there.
Okay, I during your explaining your cult and what it was all about, I heard spaceships and I heard I heard all of that. Don't remember hearing God. Um,
We thought
did
Fred might be God.
Okay. So was there a worship to a deity?
No, no, no.
Other
It
than
was
Fred.
highly disorganized, highly
Okay.
disorganized. We didn't even have like a meditation. We didn't, there was required reading, so to speak, but no one really read it. No one had time because all you were doing was working nonstop, you
So,
know?
well, that puts a little kink in my question, because my question
Okay.
at the end of every show to our guest is, what faith do you have today? So, for example, if you were a Jehovah's Witness, if you were a Mormon and you got out or you escaped and it's 10 years later, where is your mind? Where is your soul? Where is your spirit today? And the answer would be, I believe in God. I don't believe in God. But I don't know. Can you answer that question?
For myself, yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Um, you ask these questions that are deep for me, my friend. For me, it's
Okay.
deep, and I know we're at the top of the hour. I was born into a family. My father is the Iranian, and he was raised Muslim, never practiced. Thinks religion is the cause of all wars and all problems.
Agreed.
My mother was raised in southeastern Idaho in a tiny little town of 2,000 people as a Mormon. She calls herself a recovering Mormon.
There you go.
So, I grew up with a father who would never allow any talk about religion or matters of mysticism or the spirit or spirituality, whatever the hell that means, because these terms get bandied about in different ways and it means different things to different people. No disrespect to anyone out there listening. Um, and I'm grateful for it because I do not have a religion. I have never had a religion. Do I have belief? What is my belief? My belief is in myself. I believe in
Mm,
myself,
okay.
and I believe in the goodness, the general overall goodness of humankind. I'm not so naive as to think, and I hope no one would think that I think that everything is roses and bubblegum and unicorns and sunshine, especially after the story I've just talked about for the past hour. But generally speaking, my experience has been that people are good, and anytime people try to tell you otherwise or to demonize or us versus them, as Melody so aptly put earlier, um, they are usually trying to sell you something or amass power. I will quote my late great father-in-law, Reverend Dr. Ralph David Abernathy. If I become 1/10 as good as Reverend was, I will consider myself a success in this life. He said, "We hate one another because we fear one another. We fear one another because we don't know one another. We don't know one another because we won't sit down at the table. If we do that, you find out we have a lot more commonalities than we have differences. Sit down, break bread with that guy, with that woman, with that girl, with that kid, with that other religion. You got more commonalities. You can just start with the basics. We're in a human body. We need air. That's what I believe in.
And that's what
I
diplomacy
like
is
that.
all about. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. I like that a lot, especially, but just for the audience, we are
Yes.
recording this on the night that, and it's interesting that our guest is half Iranian, that uh,
Boy.
Trump came to a ceasefire with Iran. So this is being recorded. That
Don't believe the hype.
I'm not. We don't get into politics, but I just thought it'd be.
Okay.
It's interesting that you're half Iranian and we're at
Yeah.
war with Iran, and Trump did his peace thing. And I'm not for or against Trump. I'm not going to go there, but I
Okay.
just thought it was interesting. We're recording that on the very day that he was supposed to go in there and blow up Iran.
I'm
Melody,
gonna
would
interrupt
you?
you real quick. I'll be real quick, Andrew. You said something so important. Please, I'm sorry, we're gonna go a little bit long. Number 1, in all due respect, it's Iran. Long E, Iran, and it's
Iran, okay.
Iranian. Yeah, Iranian.
Not
Second thing,
Iranian, okay.
yeah, well, yeah, that's what everyone said for 50
Yeah,
years. How can
yeah.
anybody expect to say any different?
Yeah,
So
I mispronounced it in the introduction too then.
it's all good. No, I just say it because, it's, 50 years and it breaks my heart every time a little bit more. So that's the first thing. The second thing, irony of ironies, I escaped the Iranian Revolution with nothing but the clothes on my back. Okay. And I'm watching the same thing happen in this country right now with Donald Trump and MAGA. If you don't realize that this is a pseudo religious doomsday cult, the white
Mm,
evangelical
yep.
Christianity, Christian nationalism, and that Donald Trump is a criminal and a fascist and an authoritarian, you aren't looking closely enough.
And we will leave the
Sorry.
politics there. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
That's
that.
it. You're welcome.
Mel, your question.
So my question is, Dar, if somebody is listening and they are currently in a cult similar to yours or not similar to yours, and they're starting to see the cracks, they're starting to have some doubts, what would be your words of advice to them?
Well, you asked a different question I thought you would ask, Melody. That's a very thoughtful question. I don't know that I have the answer to that because that is such a tenuous place to be, and it's fraught with danger,
It is.
literal danger and psychological danger and emotional danger. Um, you know, I hate to say this, but really the only way out of those situations are when, like myself, someone's life is threatened, either literally with a gun pointed at your chest or in the legal term, legally, you're getting sued, you're in bad shape, you're looking at jail time, which I was in that position, as you may or may not imagine after that story. Um, and or there's been death in the group or, if it's a family member that's not part of the cult, that's really not even gonna shake the tree that much for 90% of the people. And unfortunately, it gets to the point where it's a life or death situation for the cult member. If it's when you're first meeting someone and they're starting to tell you about this stuff and you think there's this cool group of people and, every time you're around them, you feel good and stuff, this is what I tell everybody. Run, motherfucker, run!
That's good advice.
Okay.
Just get out of there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I wish it was that simple sometimes,
It's
but
never that simple.
never
Thank you,
that
Andrew.
simple.
Yeah.
It
Dar,
isn't that simple, but that is the advice we all want to give these people, right? You want to tell them before
Yeah,
you get
right?
too deep in, run, run.
Run, man, run. Yeah.
Yep.
yeah. All right, Dar. Wow. You were right.
Yes.
What a different story and what a different whole story.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Different-
promised us something different and it
Yes.
I did.
certainly was.
Yeah.
Yes. Very entertaining.
Well, thank
I
you.
I was
To me, it's all comical and funny, but it's not funny at all at the same time.
well, at the
Yeah.
time it wasn't funny. Of course, look, what hindsight, whatever.
Yeah.
I just my favorite part was the alien spaceships because I was waiting. Heaven's Gate was all about that, and all the interviews we've done, I don't think we had anybody with an alien cult. So you may have just been the first episode that had an
Good
alien in this story. Am
God.
I right, Melody? Could you think of
I
anybody?
think there was one other one. The uh what was it called? Something in Power. The lady who said the one lady was in love with a squid, and do you remember that? And that's when she laughed when people were online and one person said that Training in Power was the name of the cult. But
Okay.
yes, they did talk about aliens.
Okay.
Yes, on that
All
one.
right.
All right. All
I
right.
must have been falling asleep with that one. Okay. Dar, thank you for joining us. What incredible. Good luck with the book. And
Thank
we
you.
will be
Thank you.
watching the HBO documentary on when does it come out?
Comes
June.
out June 1st, so in a month, just a little over a month and a half away. Yeah.
And do you know the title?
They don't have a title for it yet, man. I just
All right.
spoke with the filmmaker and, yeah.
Okay.
To your point, I will be doing my own documentary as soon as the book is out and published, and I'm gonna be doing interviews left and right. But
Nice.
the filmmaker of this docuseries on HBO, this upcoming docuseries, he and I are going to be collaborating together to tell my story, which I touched
Great.
on here, which is going to be the Iranian Revolution, this cult that I was in, and of course, sorry, I'm going to get political for a second, the current cult of America, MAGA, and Donald Trump,
Okay.
and the tie-in together.
All right.
Thank
Dar,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
Continued success to both of you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And once again, we want to thank Dar so much for coming on the show and sharing his story with us. I want to say one thing before, again, I'm going to let you talk here too, Andrew, but I did find it interesting how he basically, another way in which he took the cult leader's power away was by not using the name that he changed his name from Fred to Frederick. And we did that in my cult too, because my original cult name leader's name, as even though he goes by Israel Hawkins, his original name, his birth given name was Buffalo Bill Hawkins. And when we left, a lot of us people that left would call him Buffalo or Bill, rather than Israel, because Israel was the name he gave himself. And we felt like that was kind of because it would annoy him we
So,
were calling him
right.
Bill or Buffalo. So it was kind of like a way of taking away his
You're
power.
ignoring his self-proclaimed
Yes.
power. Like, I am
Yes.
Israel. No, you're not. You're Buffalo
No,
Bill.
you're Bill. You're Buffalo
You're
Bill,
Bill.
exactly.
You're Buffalo Bill.
So and that would just drive him crazy, right? He would have hated that, like, because he changed his name for a reason. He didn't like the name.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. And the other thing this is going to pull you in, is I did find it interesting because I think Dar is a similar age to you. I'm not really sure, but I think he's
I
similar age to you. And he's in
believe
the
so.
New York area. And I'm thinking, Andrew was living his life and doing things, and he's in his 20s, and he had no idea all these cults were going on around him while he was in New York growing
No
up.
idea.
And no idea.
Not a clue. I lived in a suburban outside of New York City, suburban, up and coming, very wealthy neighborhood. I was very secluded. Again, 100 times I've told this story. I brought up in a Catholic church, Catholic school, grammar, junior high, high school, and college, and I was in a bubble.
Yeah,
And
all
I didn't.
this cult stuff was going on all around you in New York, and you had no clue.
Yeah,
And now we're all talking about
there
it.
was a lot going on around me that I didn't know anything about. It was like my parents shielded me from it, and that was
Yeah.
not good because when I finally broke free and went out into the real world, it's funny, I didn't say escaped. When I broke free, which if we had time, we should talk about that, but
Yeah.
anyway, when I broke free, I looked around and I was like, wow, there's a whole world out here that I had no idea that existed. So
Yeah.
I could call my family a cult only in the sense that they kept me shielded. Like,
yeah.
they didn't teach me how to.
You weren't exposed. You were like
You know,
naive and just had no clue what
Parents
was out
are
there.
supposed to prepare you for the world, right? They're
Yes.
supposed to get you, and I don't feel like and my mom and dad have passed, so
Yeah.
they did the best they could, as everybody will say, but I just don't think I was ready. So
Yeah.
anyway,
No, there's that delicate balance of preparing children and also protecting, right? So, and some parents go too much one way or the other. So, but it's not easy. It's not easy being a parent,
no,
and it's a delicate balance for sure. But we do want to thank Dar so much, and we're gonna not go too long on this outro because it's also
no,
a little bit longer episode.
long episode.
As always, thank you for listening to Cultimatum. We truly appreciate your support as we work to expose the truth and highlight the voices of these survivors.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. It helps more people discover the podcast, creating a greater awareness. And don't forget to follow, share, and keep tuning in to our latest episodes.
You can also follow Cultimatum on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube for extra content and updates.
And be sure to join our Facebook community, Cultimatum Podcast, where we continue the conversations and keep you posted when new episodes drop.
And if you're a cult survivor looking for additional support and connection, we invite you to join the Facebook group, Cult Escape and Healing.
You can also find more information about the show, including our full legal disclaimer, on our websites at cultimateumpodcast.com or anonymousandrewpodcaststudios.com.
And if you have a story related to cults or human trafficking that you'd like to share, you can reach us at cultimateumpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can do that by using the link in the show notes called Buy Us a Cup of Coffee. Your support helps cover production costs and allows us to keep bringing these important stories to light.
And as always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone.